What is going on, friends, fans, and fam? Welcome back to the South by East podcast for another traffic report. Jonathan is out this week, and I'll be handling this one solo. Man, what do you do when your kid wants a different perspective? I've got an article here by the Gospel Coalition, and we're going to walk through this together. I don't always approve of everything that they say and do, but I thought that this article was really good and had some good perspectives. And it talks about help. My child wants to go to a different church's youth group. If you are a religious person at all, you know that what your kids believe is probably pretty central and important to you and your family. But what do you do when they want a different perspective? Is it okay for them to be more well-rounded? Are you trying to brainwash them if you don't let them learn other things? But what about keeping them safe if you don't know what people believe there? That's really what this article covers. And I have some of my own thoughts, but we're going to walk through this article together, see what it says, and see what you think. And then at the end, I would love to know what you guys think about teaching not just religious views, but also moral compass, political views. I think all of that could be applied with these same type of techniques. Let's look at it. It says, after years of attending Sunday school and children's ministry programs at the church his family attends, 15-year-old Jacob has decided he wants to go to youth group at the church across town. Dun, dun, dun. When he asks his parents if he can make the switch, they aren't sure what to say. This scenario is a common one, and you may be facing it with your own teen. Before you give your child an answer, consider why this happens and how we can respond. And he goes through a few reasons why this may happen. Number one is preference. We live in a consumer culture. Our students are accustomed to finding the best product in every avenue of their lives. Our social media world makes life infinitely customizable. Teens are used to exercising control over what they do and when and how they do it. Boy, is this true. I remember my mom always telling me when we were out, boy, we got food at home. And I'd be like, yeah, but it's not McDonald's. I want McDonald's because I wanted what I wanted. And sometimes that can happen with even our moral compass or our religious views as well. It says, when it comes to youth group, students expect to exercise freedom of choice. Number two is conviction. Sometimes students change youth groups over theological convictions. Students with Catholic parents may attend a Protestant student ministry. If you're a Catholic, you know how serious that is, but still honor their parents by attending Mass with them. A parent may be a nominal attendee at one church, but the student becomes a committed member or attendee of another through its youth ministry. These circumstances don't happen often, but when they do, these young adults should be applauded for their theologically informed decisions. And I'm going to tell you, in our community, as the youth pastor here, this happens a lot. And I'm going to tell you how we handle that as we get into some of the things later. Number three is availability. I have two scenarios in mind. First, a student is committed to a local church, but circumstances hinder their involvement in its student ministry. They may have to practice during the gathering time, they may live too far to travel midweek, or not be able to get a ride. Second, a local church doesn't have the resources to provide a student ministry or to disciple a child with unique needs. Many small churches don't have a youth ministry or the resources to provide regular discipleship programs for young people. Even a church with a thriving youth ministry may not have worked through how to disciple a child with a severe disability. In these situations, students may attend another church's student ministry while remaining involved with their home church. Then it says, so what should we do? And it gives three ways to look at that. It says, don't give in to preferences, keep covenant. While your child may insist she doesn't want to go to your church's youth group due to a preference, that doesn't mean you should give in. It can be tempting to say yes out of a genuine concern for their faith. Man, if I let them go, are they going to leave Christianity? Are they going to have something against me if I don't let them do this? While I understand this inclination, young people need to learn preference doesn't fuel commitment. Rather, as Christians, we're called to covenant with Christ's body by being faithful members, submitting to leaders, and serving with our gifts. I agree with this, and they give a little more nuance as you get into this part if you go out and read the rest of the article. Uh, I agree with this to an extent. When my kids participate in a program called Young Life, I lead our student ministry here. Part of our student ministry's history is we've always had students from the community, not necessarily students from the church. We started a youth group before we even started a church. And so our students come from the neighborhood, not necessarily from our church, which means a lot of times when students come into our youth ministry, they're meeting Christ for the first time. So they don't actually have any prerequisite history. So when I'm teaching a lot of times from the ground up. My students, my kids, they I taught them a lot of the stuff that I'm teaching kids now when they were 8 years old. And so, yeah, there's some development happening, but there's also some things that my ministry is not best set to teach them. Now, my kids still come to our student ministry every Thursday, but every Monday night I send them to Highland Park Young Life. They go to Young Life and they learn about different things, and it becomes a part of enforcing and helping them to have a well rounded faith. I'll also give this example. My kids came home in the 8th grade uh, talking to me about some things that, in my mind, were straight nationalist. When I heard those things, I didn't go up to the school and say, my kids will not be coming back. Instead, I said, what did you learn and what do you think about it? And we started to work through it. And I said, hey, I'm going to affirm the things that I think are beneficial and true. And I'm going to deny some of the things that I think are problematic and lead to you becoming a terrorist. And we're not going to make any bones about it. And I'm going to teach you how to push back on those things while still being respectful to your teachers. I think we need to be the main, from a Christian perspective, disciple makers of our kids. But that doesn't mean that we block out all other thoughts and viewpoints. But instead, we teach our kids how to learn from them and how to suss out a lie. I think that that is important. And sometimes getting more diversity in their pool is how you can kick that off. Because when they become adults, everyone is not going to think like them. And if they think it is, they may have a meltdown when they get out of your house. Anyway, number 2, address convictions with conversation. And this kind of speaks on what I was talking about. Matters of conviction require careful conversations. If the doctrine taught in a youth ministry deviates from your church's confession of faith, you should address that with your pastors. I like this. It's similar to what I was saying, but it's talking about bringing in more of your community, the people that you trust to talk through those things. If your child's going through a crisis of faith, which often happens to teenagers, this is an opportunity to partner with your church in discipling your child theologically. I'm gonna skip down to the last paragraph. This should never be done lightly, but with care, prayer, and communication, because the teaching ministry of the church matters. It's important you show your child you value the work of the pastors who oversee them. If you can't honor your pastor's teaching, it may be a sign your family is at a church that you don't align with. Man, that is so important. I saw a great video um, last year as I was doing my research to get ready to vote in the election. I saw a great video where two people with Christian backgrounds sat down, both African American, one was a Democrat, one was a Republican. And they sat down and had an hour and a half long conversation after edits about their viewpoints and where they sat. And one of the things that hit me the most in that conversation was they both were able to point out the flaws in their party, which is something that I often see people not able to do. But they were both able to point out the flaws in their party. And they said, it's important that I remain in the party because if we lose all of the moderate voices or all of the reasonable voices in the party, then the party will become radicalized. And I believe in a lot of the principles of the party, even if I don't agree with all the policies we're pushing forward. So I'm playing the long game and trying to influence my party. I think a lot of times we look at um, ideological or even theological beliefs as a zero sum game. You're either all the way in or you're all the way out. When really our churches, our political parties, our groups, they're communities. And your community is made up of the people like you. And so you exercising your influence in that community is important. Now, sometimes you realize, hey, we just don't align. This is a sticking point for me. You have to know what your core values are and where they line up. And then your kid can know, okay, this is the rubric from which I should be weighing things and how I should be moving. All right, last one. It says maintain a clear conscience. Exercise flexibility and charity in matters of availability. If your church can't offer programming for teens and you find a student ministry you trust, there's nothing wrong with your child attending that group. I recommend making this decision with your pastor and communicating your commitment to the life and health of your local church. Commitment to discipleship is worth forsaking preferences for even a teenager. If your schedule has gotten in the way of your child participating in the church life, consider removing good things from your schedule to invest in the eternal good of your local church. Man, this is so important too. As parents, if we want our kids to be flexible, we need to be flexible. If we want our kids to have strong roots and foundations, we need to have strong roots and foundations. Though I understand why parents often revert to this, and I have said it a million times myself, because I said so is not a theological statement. Because I said so is not a political affirmation or confirmation. We have to teach our kids how to be flexible, how to have strong roots. And that means we need to think about those things. We need to demonstrate that so that our kids can make proper decisions and have those skills that they need to make those decisions. But what do you think? Do you think, man, my kids should always go to my youth group? My kids should always vote how I vote? My kids should always believe what I believe on all things at all times? Or are you a little more flexible? Are you like, hey, I want them to find things for themselves. I don't really want to indoctrinate them. Or do you think that there should be a healthy balance in between where you're kind of helping guide them through that process? We would love to know what you think there in the comments. If you're not on the Facebook group, join the Facebook group South by East Podcast. That's where we talk about the culture, scriptures, and everything in between with you. But wherever you're at, continue to like, comment, subscribe, favorite this on your favorite podcasting channel, and we'll see you next week in the intersection.